Defending the weak is the new oppression is a quote that I composed recently to describe how Orwellian our culture has become. While the intention to protect the vulnerable is inherently noble and just, it can be manipulated into a new form of oppression. The whole wolves in sheep's clothing metaphor. Now, the wolves in sheep's clothing metaphor was first used by Christ to describe those of his day who hid behind religious piety, hid behind religious appearances in order to prey upon the most vulnerable. However, the principle behind this metaphor isn't confined just to religious figures from 2,000 years ago. We're witnessing the same tactic in our modern culture, but this time it's in a secular form. Defending the weak has clearly become trendy and socially advantageous in our modern culture, where it seems that just about everyone wants to be portrayed as a social activist in one form or another. And this has extended beyond individuals, even into business. Companies use defending the weak as branding, and they market everything from men's shaving cream to sneakers. In politics, portraying yourself as the champion of the downtrodden, well, that's a sure way to win votes and paint any opponent as an oppressor. What complicates matters even more is the aggression often behind modern social activism. How, unlike the peaceful approaches of figures such as Martin Luther King Jr., today's social activism, there's often this underlying militancy. There's often anger, rage, and even violence, which begs the question, is today's social activism truly about caring for the weak, or is it driven by something darker, perhaps a desire to indulge our baser instincts under the guise of justice? Is it really motivated by a love for the weak, or is it motivated by the love for power? Now, perhaps that may seem rather harsh, a rather harsh assessment, but it's worth noting that history offers up many examples, far too many actually, of very violent and oppressive movements that first began as defenders of the weak. You just have to think of the French Revolution of the late 1800s, or the many Marxist revolutions of the 20th century, and how they all claimed to be fighting for the oppressed. And yet they all ended up being more oppressive than the regimes that they overthrew. Even today, the most oppressive country in the world is North Korea, and how in Orwellian fashion describes itself as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. History clearly demonstrates that the wolf in sheep's clothing metaphor is true across all of time. Behind every noble cause, there's often a hidden agenda. Behind every good cause lurks at least a few sociopaths. And so we should remain skeptical of those who claim to be defenders of the weak, and perhaps reflect critically upon our own motives. They may not be as pure as we'd like to think. We need to always keep in mind that defending the weak, but then turning it into a new form of oppression, is a troubling tendency of human nature.